you, and thank you for coming. This is the Senior Lawyers Committee of the New York City Bar Association presenting the American-Polish Alliance, the past and its lessons for Central and Eastern Europe today. Thank you for coming to this real session. It is our first post-COVID larger section in person. And however, for those who may want to see it again or who have missed it, it will be recorded and available on the New York City Bar Association website, YouTube. I want to just introduce the New York City Bar because there are many non-lawyers here. And the New York City Bar welcomes lawyers to become members. And there are about 150 or more committees that present programs. Often they're specific to the type of law that is being practiced, but as the Senior Lawyers Committee, this presentation is part of a public affairs, used to be luncheons, but those don't exist anymore, so public affairs presentation of topics that are of interest and important in today's world, which this is definitely falling into that category. I also want to thank not just our speakers, who I will introduce shortly, but our co-sponsoring committees. And the committees that co-sponsor this with the Senior Lawyers Committee are the Rule of Law Task Force, the European Affairs Committee, the Military and Veterans Affairs Committee, the United Nations Committee, the Council on International Affairs, and Middle Eastern and North African Affairs Committee. So we are a broadly sponsored program and also of quite great interest to the New York City Bar itself. And thank you, Dr. Korga, for the Polish cookies that are on the table back there.
Enjoy.
Please enjoy. Either you picked one up before or you'll pick one up after. So today, our topic of discussion is, as the title said, the American-Polish Alliance, the past and its lessons for Central and Eastern European today. Our speakers are Ambassadors Krzysztof Szczerski, and I hope I got that right, Permanent Representative of Poland to the United Nations, and Dr. Iwona Korga, President of the Pilsudski Institute of America, which is located in Brooklyn. Dr. Korga received a Ph.D. in history from the Pedagogical University of Krakow and a Master of Library Science from Queens College. And she is a licensed professional librarian. As she speaks about the Institute, you will see the vast amount of material that she has to organize. She specializes in the Polish-American relations during the 20th century. She's the author of numerous contributions to Polish-American newspapers and periodicals, and in the US and in Poland, and has written the book Poland Fights, Propaganda Activities of the Polish Government in Exile Towards American Society. Dr. Korga has also been decorated with numerous medals recognizing her contributions for Polish culture and education. She will speak first about Poland in the 20th century and the mission of the Pilsudski Institute. Sorry. Ambassador Szczerski graduated from the Jagiellonian University Institute of Political Science and International Relations, as well as the Robert Schuman Institute in Budapest and the American Institute of Political Systems and Economics. He has served in public positions prior to becoming ambassador, including Undersecretary of State for Foreign Affairs and for the Committee for European Integration, a political advisor to the European Parliament, a member of the Parliament of the Republic of Poland, and Secretary of State for the Republic of Poland. Ambassador Szczerski has been honored with multiple decorations from many countries in addition to Poland: Finland, Bulgaria, Norway, the Czech Republic, Belgium, Lithuania, and Ukraine, among others. He will speak about the current role of Poland in Central Europe and on the world stage. Dr. Korga will orient us with maps and descriptions during her talk, and the ambassador will update us to the current situation. But I wanted to mention something that struck me about the history. Poland and Lithuania formed a commonwealth in 1569, which resulted in one of Europe's largest countries. This was remarkable because this state established religious tolerance, 1569, and a parliament as the dominant governing force, while limiting the power of an elected king. Conflicts in Central Europe in the 17th century weakened the Commonwealth, and Poland was partitioned among Prussia, Russia, and Austria. The history of the time is complex, but on May 3rd, 1791, the first European constitution was adopted by the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth in revolt against partition. And maybe these words are familiar to the Americans among us. Quote, all power in civil society should be derived from the will of the people. 3 distinct powers shall compose the government of the Polish nation: the legislative power, the executive power, the judicial power. Maybe this sounds familiar. This was only the second constitution of the world, with the US being the first, adopted December 15th, 1788. With a bit of this history in mind, I am honored to present Dr. Korga and Ambassador Czerski, and Dr. Korga will begin. We will have time for questions at the end, so please hold your questions for the complete presentation. Dr. Korga?
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me here. It's an honor to be here. But it wouldn't happen if we didn't have these great friends. And I have just seen Diane Fenner coming. Thank you for introducing us here. And Gertrude Pfaffenbach offered her help. And also I want to thank Karolina Obrycki, who was instrumental in bringing this lecture together here at this New York City Bar Association. So this is our first time as the Pilsudski Institute here, and I will tell you a little bit about the Institute and of course about history of Poland, but the history which is 100 years old. So outline of this lecture is here. So I will speak about World War I, about what happened after the war, how Poland regained independence, about Polish-Bolshevik War, and Polish-American alliance, including President Wilson, Ignacy Paderewski, and Herbert Hoover, and of course, Marian Cooper. I will also elaborate a little bit about how it all happened that Poland was such a great country in interwar time. So I will start with the Institute because without the Institute, I could not tell you that history. So the Pilsudski Institute is celebrating 80 years this year here in New York City. It was established in 1943 during Second World War. On the slides, you can see our art gallery, our reading room. We are located in Greenpoint, Brooklyn, 138 Greenpoint Avenue. You can visit us every day from Monday to Friday and see what beautiful collections we have. Art gallery, 1 million documents, 20,000 books, and many other collections. And the most important are archives. You can see our library collection and our archives. One may ask, how is it happened that Polish archives are in New York City? So I have to tell you the story. Pilsudski Institute was set up not only in New York, but in 1923 in Warsaw, in Poland. So it's 100 years ago. And Marshal Józef Piłsudski, very important person for Polish state, I will tell you a little more about him later, was instrumental in setting up this organization. It was called Institute to Study Modern History of Poland. And that institute had many documents connected with Poland borders and regaining independence by Poland. And when the Second War started, all materials were put in wooden boxes and carried through Europe to United States. And in 1943, those documents happened to be at the Pilsudski Institute. So today we have 20% of our collections are from Poland. But they are available online, so nobody from Poland have to come here. They can just jump into computer all over the world and see all documents. They are digitized and accessible for free for everyone. But using those documents, I take you to the journey 100 years ago. And still, I want to show you some pictures from inside our place. There is, but because what we do, our mission is to collect, preserve, and share documents and educate about Polish history in New York City and in the United States. So we have many different programs open to the public. One of the events is with Ambassador Krzysztof Szczerski 1 year ago. And another one, it's a history class for Polish Americans. And now we are going back 100 years ago. So I present you with the map of Europe. This map it was drawn after First World War, 1918, 1921. And you can see how First World War changed Europe. 4 empires were down after the war, and we had Austro-Hungarian Empire, German Empire, Ottoman Empire, and Russian Empire. They all lost during First World War. We have many new countries. We have Austria, we have Yugoslavia and Hungary, and then Poland regained independence, claiming the lands which belonged to Poland in 18th century, and our neighboring countries, Germany, Austro-Hungary, and Russia took over in 18th century. But then in Russia, you can see that because of the loss in First World War and revolution, Russia has to agree to have space for new countries, Finland, Estonia, Lithuania, and Latvia. So there are many changes. The next maps are showing Poland as it was back to maps of Europe. You can see the red color, and you can see how Poland looked like in 1921. I have to tell you that our western borders were designed by peace treaty in Paris, but eastern borders were open, absolutely open, and Polish people have to fight for them. On the second map, you can see how borders change after Second World War, how Poland was moved to west and lost 1/3 of its territories on the east. It was very difficult for all Polish people and for politics, immigration, and many, many issues. And now we are going to Polish-American friendship. I'm showing you painting by Arthur Szyk. President Wilson is drawing maps of Europe, probably drawing 14 points in 1918, and Ignacy Paderewski is sitting just by President Wilson. Ignacy Paderewski, for all who doesn't know him, he was a great Polish pianist born in 1860 in the land of Poland, but that time belonged to Russia, now in Ukraine. Then he came to New York and United States, and he was very successful in his career. He was a pianist, giving concerts all around, and he knew a lot of people, including President Wilson. And then he knew also Colonel Edward House. You can see his monument, which was set up in Poland in 1932. Colonel House was the right hand of President Wilson, very much connected with foreign policy. And he was heading a special committee of 150 people who were chosen by President Wilson to study future of world and Europe after the war. They came up with 2,000 reports and 1,200 maps. So he was very knowledgeable, and Paderewski knew him very well. So as historians think, Paderewski influenced President Wilson in setting up Point 13, where President said there is a need for independent Poland with access to sea, with Polish people living there, and this have to be guaranteed by the powers, and it happened. In the middle, you see something very special. This is a special award which was presented to President Wilson. This is the Order of the White Eagle, which Polish state presented to President Wilson after he finished his term as a president. All presidents' documents are in different places, but many of them are with the Library of Congress. Most of them are digitized, so if you're really interested in that subject, you can go there online and see all of these documents. And then Paderewski is not only the figure who is available in America. When the time is right, he comes back to Poland and he became prime minister. I'm showing you pictures from our archives. This is the first picture of Paderewski is from his debut in New York City from 1891. And the second picture, he's together with Pilsudski as a prime minister. Because Pilsudski was very influential in Poland, but Paderewski was abroad, and he was representing Poland on a peace conference. Again, while there was a peace conference and different things happening on Polish soil, there was a lot of need for help. And Poland was lucky to have Herbert Hoover, who was very much important to bring humanitarian relief. He was the head of American Relief Administration and provided food and shelter and a lot of other articles for Polish people, not only Polish, but I'm talking here about Poland. So there were 4,000 kitchens, 10,000 volunteers, a lot of food for Polish children, and you can see Herbert Hoover on one picture where he is sitting with Paderewski and Pilsudski, and on the second one, there are children coming to Warsaw, thanking Hoover for help. But you can easily see they are barefoot. So when Hoover saw it, he ordered American people to collect shoes and coats, and it happened. Those shoes and coats arrived to Poland by the fall of 1919, and those children had to wear them, and they were feeling much better during the winter. And in the middle, there is something which I have to tell you about. This is the Polish declarations of admiration and friendship for the United States. In 1926, there were more than 100 volumes of those declarations signed by Polish people. 20% of Polish population signed those declarations, and they were with beautiful pictures, and they were delivered to White House as a thank you. And now they are digitized and searchable through the Library of Congress. So if anyone has Polish ancestors, probably can look there and find their names. So what is happening in Poland? I told you that Józef Piłsudski was a very important figure. He was just like a father of Polish independence. In America, we can compare him to George Washington. And Pilsudski, as a main aim of his life, had fighting for Polish independence. He was in Siberia, taken by Russians. He was a member of Polish Socialist party, and he set up Polish legions during First World War. And then he was sent to prison, came back from Magdeburg on November 10 to Warsaw, and was in charge of Polish state, and then helping and working with Paderewski. The second picture I'm showing you is Saski Palace. It was beautiful palace in Poland, which was destroyed during the Second War, and now Polish state is planning to rebuild it. As I said, some of the borders were set up, western borders, but all of eastern areas were not designed. You have to understand that after war finished, there was a lot of German armies in Poland, and when they were moving to Germany, Russians were taking those spaces. In 1919, Polish state and Pilsudski thought that there is a time to regain some of the eastern lands, and there was a large offensive going towards Kiev. Kiev was taken. But next year, Russia, then after revolution with Lenin as a head, regained powers, and they were fighting back. So here you can see Pilsudski saying goodbye to Polish army going to fight. We can see even a woman fighting at that time, and we can see a military train. This is all from our archives. Also, I want to show you those documents saved from Poland. I'm showing you the Order to Battle of Warsaw. This is the yellowish document from August 10, 1920, where Pilsudski is designing what is the need and what have to be done to win the Battle of Warsaw, which actually happened. It's called the 18th, the most important battle of the world. And the other document, it's a document which was decoded. It's a Russian document which Polish army decoded, and they could see what the Russians are planning. Then we are close to Marian Cooper, because the war continues. And here is an American aviator, a very adventurous man, born in Jacksonville, Florida, who is fighting during First War in Europe as a pilot. And then after war finishes, he doesn't want to go back to America. He presents himself to serve Poland. And some of his friends are going to Poland, and they are very much helpful with fighting as pilots with Kościuszko Squadron. On first picture, Cooper is in a Polish military uniform. The middle one is when Cooper just ran away from Russia because he was shot down and he was imprisoned. And the last picture shows how Paderewski is thanking the pilots. And we can also see the emblem of that Kościuszko Squadron. After that, Cooper went back to America and became very famous movie director. Some of you may remember him from Kong Kong movie from 1932, and he made many, many others and died in 70s. So this is the end of the history I wanted to tell you, because of course I could speak many hours, but we have a limited time. So Poland regained independence, defined borders, won the war, and had a very good and fruitful time until 1939. A lot of changes in Polish state, very industrialization, modernization, and then a lot of intellectual people, a lot of beautiful books and education of new generation, which during Second World War was fighting for Poland and never stopped until now. And this is the map of today Europe. Many changes again. And I didn't mention that Pilsudski was trying to build a federation of eastern states. Ukraine even signed a treaty with Simon Petlura to fight for independence for Ukraine and Lithuania. But when the treaty with Russia was signed in 1921, it was not possible. So Ukraine went back to Russia. And now, 100 years ago, the problems are coming back the same. So I'm finishing with President Biden visiting Poland in February 21st, 2023, first anniversary of Russian aggression to Ukraine. And I'm giving the floor to Ambassador Krzysztof Szczerski to talk about the present time. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Korga. And now, Ambassador Szczerski will bring us up to date and tell us about the current affairs in Poland and Central Europe. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here and to meet you in this prestigious place. I should start by thanking the New York City Bar Association and the Pilsudski Institute for organizing this event and for bringing us up all here to this room. We titled the evening today with the very famous phrase, the Historia magistra vitae est, the history is the teacher of life. Because, you know, it's the Polish people, and you should know it, we are very historical-minded nation. We always think of the history, and we're trying to bring the lessons from the history, which was, of course, very adventurous. To say diplomatically, from last 1,000 years of the existence of the Polish state. So of course we always look backward, not just to contemplate, but also to draw the lessons from the history. So please let me at least try to sketch some of the lessons that we are learning for today from our history, and then how we see it, how we see the situation of today from that perspective. There is one general lesson that is always important to say while discussing the history of Central Europe, which is different than the history of, in that sense, that there's the history of what to say, the Iberian Peninsula, so Spain or Brits or even the United States, which is that we know one thing, that the freedom and sovereignty cannot be taken for granted. The geopolitics for the Central Europe is a question of existence. It is a fundamental question of existing or non-existing. So we are always being confronted in this part of the world with this basic question, to be or not to be. With a basic existence question. So we always look at the politics, at the world politics, at the geopolitics from that very perspective, which is a very bitter lesson that we have gone through through our history. That yes, you can lose your state, you can really and still survive, which is another part. And Dr. Korga was just saying about some part of the story, why we survive through the power of our culture, of our identity, of all these instruments that we were at our hands, even not through while the country was the state was not existing. No, the national anthem of Poland starts with the phrase, "Poland has not died yet, as long as we live, as Poles." So that actually nation is the vehicle of existence, no, rather than the physical state. So that's a completely different aspect that talking to to French or to Brits or to Spaniards or even to Americans, the question of existent or non-existent is not really like a part of their. They're more talking about the interests or expansion rather than just asking themselves the basic question of to be or not to be. So that's the. So when you look at and you think of how we feel and how we act and how we react and what we do while seeing the Russian aggression today on Ukraine, you should know it that we look at it from that perspective. Yes, Ukraine can be lost. Yes, it is possible that the state that exists now may not exist tomorrow. It is possible, and still you have to somehow secure their future so that so they will survive. So this is one basic thing that please take it in the back of your heads while discussing, or what maybe we just enjoy the conversation together in the second part of the evening. So this is the one basic I would say assumption that, or lesson that we are learning from the history of this part of Europe. But there are three I just want to say about from this basic one, the three more detailed aspects of the history as a teacher that taught us from this history of the 20th century, and I would try to be the most thought-provoking as I can be in being the diplomat here in New York. So there are three lessons that I want to put at the discussion today for your consideration. Lesson number one: appeasement does not work if it's confronted with the imperialism. This is the one of those lessons. No, this part of Europe, the central part of Europe, has been suffering from the policies of appeasement while being confronted with the imperialism. Well, either it was the Russian or the Soviet one or the German Nazi one. No? Appeasement never worked when it's confronted with someone that, and this is very important, because that's the part of the Putin's story of today and the Hitler story of the past, or the Soviet story or Stalin's story of the past. You cannot really bargain with someone who treat the sign of goodwill as the sign of weakness. And that's how imperialists work, what the imperialists do. No? The bargaining, the exchange of interest, it's only possible when there is a kind of equality of a mindset. No? Saying that, okay, I'm investing in a good relations with you, trying to sign or to show kind of goodwill to you, and kind of go along with your action as an investment in your future action towards me. No? If you don't have this basic platform of bargaining, you cannot really start negotiating in a sense of appeasement. No? Because it only brings more, I would say, appetite to the beast, and that's the very important lesson, which was valid in the future, and it's valid also today. No? Be aware of appeasement policy, because especially, of course, and that will be soon the second part of the second lesson. Especially when this appeasement is in expense of the others. It's always easy to make appeasement in the expense of the others rather than of yourself. So that's the lesson number one. Appeasement just simply does not work if confronted with imperialism. The second lesson, which is important for us, is this is one of the very famous phrases in the Polish political language. It's called "Nothing about us without us." That was, our host just mentioned the uniqueness of the Polish political system in the first republic, the first can call it republic, which still was a kingdom, but it was sort of parliamentary kingdom of Poland, and that was this phrase comes from that time. Nothing about us without us. That means the political nation should participate in the decision making. That was the part. That was the internal kind of setup of the. That's why we elected kings and so on. That was the whole concept of the state of Polish-Lithuanian state before the partitions. But we extrapolated that to the foreign policy as well. So nothing about us without us. That which means for us that we don't agree with any zone of influences. We don't agree on the situation when the fate of one nation is decided by the others without even asking their permission. And that's another bitter story of our part of Europe, because we've been the subject of this kind of decisions, including, and just let me be frank, including the United States, being a part of those deciding about our fate without our consent. And of course, the story of Poland after the Second World War and the fact that Poland became the part of the Soviet zone of influence. That was that the Iron Curtain was on the west of us, not on whatever it should never be anywhere. But still, as it was, that we were somehow being put into the geopolitical on the geopolitical division line, not the one chosen by Poland, is an absolutely fundamental part of our mindset of what we think about the future of also about the future of Ukraine. About I will come back to that in a moment, and about of course the future of Poland as well. So for us it was absolutely important, fundamental that after 1989 we had this chance to make a decision about ourselves. So we decided that to join the NATO and the European Union. It was our decision, and that's absolutely crucial. And that should be given to any nation, everywhere in the world. The freedom of choice, not being put by the others into the into the zone of influence or some kind of special rights of one nation towards the others. So of course, part of that story coming from the 19th century that was pictured here is that part of this of those nothing about us without us is of course the question of our fundamental disagreement with the concept of the concerto of the mighties. No, that there is a kind of like in the George Orwell's Animal Farm. No, all states are equal, but some of them are more equal than others. Now, we absolutely don't agree with that. Even if in the realities, of course, there is the countries differs in their capacities, and of course we have to get real, no, and get to terms with the fact that of course there are more influential and less influential countries that are bigger, smaller, richer and poorer, whatever. I mean, there is so many differences, but it doesn't mean that it automatically gives some of them right to decide about the fate of the others. So there is no future if we continue in that sort of modalities that there is right of some of the countries to decide about the other about the rest. And no, for us, it's a very important also to see that. I remember while visiting French school. That was in the early 90s, and it was a map. That was geography class. There was a map hanging on the wall, titled "L'Europe," Europe. And that was just, and Poland was not there, because that was the map of the European Union that time. So Poland was not the part of the European Union. So Poland was not on this map. And so I asked the geography teacher, it was not a history, it was geography teacher. Why are you teaching them wrongly? No, why are you making mistakes in your own geography class? And then she answered me, no, because they have to learn the Europe that they will live in. And you are just somewhere else. They will never, because they will live in the Europe. They will work. They will live. They will study. No, they will travel around this. This is the Europe for them, because that's the. And I said, oh my God, no, this is. And that was 90s. So then I realized just recently that the pupils from that school, that was like 30 years ago, they are now decision makers because they probably are in the 40s, early 50s or 40s. No? So those who are who are decision makers of today's Europe have never learned about my country. So this legacy of the Iron Curtain, even if that was already part of the history, is a long shadow of that division. Because either they learned it just now, so they like re-educate themselves, so the Europe, or they're just ignorant about the culture, about the heritage, about the richness, about the interest, about the lessons that we learned. No. So only those who have been taught now, after Poland joined the European Union. So in the 10, 15 years, we find that we have the leaders of the international scene that learned about Poland being a part of Europe. So we have. So this is how those kind of decisions that are taken above the heads of the others can cast a long shadow also for the presence. No, this is not just a question of history. So that's the lesson number 2. The first, the appeasement does not work if it's confronted with imperialism. Second, nothing about that without us. So no zones of influence, no concert of the mighties. And lesson number 3 that we can take from the history of this region is that in fact it is the region that can be treated as a measure of the world freedom. So the fate of the Central Europe is kind of the signal. If the geopolitics, if the world politics are tending into the freedom and democracy, or are tending into the kind of I would say oppressive system. Because whatever we are enjoying the freedom in the nations of Central Europe, that signals the freedom for Europe, and so that signals also the kind of freedom for the Western Hemisphere. If we are oppressed this way or another, that will always finally bring the world conflict. No? That will finally the conflict or the oppression in this part of Europe finally, sooner or later, brings the world conflict. Because this is McIntyre's the theory of the Rimland, whatever, but that's another story. But still, it's not a question of theories. It's a question of the realities. No, the 2 world wars started with the conflict, oppression, and suppression, and then the freedom fight of this part of Europe. So be careful, so to say. This is not just a kind of secondary part of the world stage. In fact, what's happening there in the Central Europe is of primary importance to the world stage, because this is and of course now, why? Because we have this feeling of living on the tectonic rim of geopolitics. No? We are like a California of the geopolitics. We're just expecting the new earthquake coming, and we just thinking when it come, and can we actually predict it before it happens? So and with this knowledge from the past, we can predict it sooner, better. I mean, in some sense, no? Because we were one of those saying to the rest of our allies, including the United States, including our friends in Western Europe, that something will happen in Ukraine, that Putin is preparing himself, that you should not get so much involved and feed the Russian economy, because with the energy market, with the gas contracts, with something will happen. And so we were those whistleblowers in the sense of the world politics. But unfortunately, most of our allies didn't want to listen to that warning signals, and but we were sending them constantly since the Georgia War, since the Russians invaded Georgia in 2008. That this is just the first move of this imperialism, no? of this imperial politics. So when you live on the tectonic rim, you feel it, and you know that, and you actually is someone worth listening to about these movements. So that's the three lessons, no? 3 lessons that we take from our history, and how can you just look through these 3 lenses? How we look, and that would be my last part of what I'm supposed to say in the beginning or in the introduction to the discussion. What can be the consequences for that in the current stage of the Ukrainian war? First of all, appeasement does not work. What is the remedy? Of course, we have to always defend international law. It is this is upholding international law is of basic importance for Poland, no? And being the guardian of international law, and also looking at the solutions that may come only through the lens of the basics of international law, which means respecting national territorial sovereignty and of every territory, and defending borders. Borders cannot be changed by force. This is the basics of the international system. So upholding international law, which stands by the territorial integrity and the sovereignty of states, is of fundamental importance. No? Instead of appeasement, just stay and stand by international law. That's and its rules. That's the consequence number 1. Consequence number 2, coming from the nothing about us without us, is the formula of just peace. No? Just peace. So the peace that will finally, and we hope will come also after this aggression, should be the just peace. The just peace can only be achieved with Ukraine and with our region, not above our region, and not above Ukraine. So you cannot dictate Ukraine a peace agreement. You cannot dictate them or force them to sign what they do not consent to, because that would only bring the further melees. So just peace is the one that involves those, and of course the part of the just peace is a compensation. Is the and accountability. No? You cannot really come to the just peace without the accountability of the perpetrators of the war crimes, and we know that this war unfortunately is the war in which all the rules of the civilized war was broken already, including the deliberately targeting the civilian infrastructure. Everything that is protected under the Geneva Conventions are actually been already destroyed. No? Geneva Conventions somehow protect the civilian infrastructure, the health infrastructure, especially the ones of education, health. And people with special needs. No, this is always has been broken during this war. And the third consequences is that we understand and we try to do our best to build up the regional system of security in our part of Europe, and we understand and we know that we have to stick together. In our region, because the fate of our region is more important than just for ourselves. We do it for the world's peace. That's why Poland is one of those, together with the United States, one of those proponents of what is called the 3 Seas Initiative, which is the cooperation of the 12 countries between the Baltic, Adriatic, and the Black Sea. That's the 3 Baltics: Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, Poland, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary, Croatia, Croatia, Slovenia, Bulgaria, Romania, and we probably will sooner or later get Ukraine being a part of that group. We have the eastern flank of NATO called the B9, the countries of the eastern flank working together. And the Free Cities Initiative is more about the infrastructure, the interconnectivity in the region. The B9 is more about the hard security. We are doing all what we can just to build up the strength of the region, to build up from within the region. So we are not patronage, but anyone, any country from outside, but to build up from inside with the partnership of the allies like United States and our Germany and others. So, but really, it is so important to build up it from, and of course there is a good basis for that. No, this is our region is this part of Europe which is developing the fastest now. Poland is a unique in that sense that we have not witnessed the recession in the last 30 years. Which it was bigger or later, the development was GDP growth was smaller or fastest, but still we are keep on developing since the beginning of the 90s, and that's and we're catching up very quickly. So and it's not only us; it's also our friends in the region. So this is the powerhouse of the European economy. So there is a chance really to build up on that and to build up the strength of the region from within. But of course, we have to have peace. No, the peace is the most important. Just give us 15 years more, and you will see. No, it's we had these 20 years between the war, interwars, and now it's more than those. And if we just have another 20-something years of the freedom and peace region, then you will see the result. No? And just to finish up, why it is so important. Another lesson that it's why the archives are here and what Dr. Korga was saying. You have to bear in mind that the current generation of Poles could be the first one in 300 years that have a chance for the children to inherit the property of the parents, the full property of the parents. In 300 years, because we have the partitions, uprisings, 2 wars, communism, then the economic transformation, which of course was completely, all the wealth was gone with the inflation and whatever happens in the beginning of the 90s, complete change of the economic structure. So my family lost its property 4 or 5 times. We're trying to rebuild, and then we lost it again, and then we're trying to rebuild, and then we lost it again. So it's only our children that have a chance to inherit our wealth for the first time. So we can really build up on the generation growth, and that's also again unique in not maybe in a very merry sense of the world, but that's the reality. So that's why as I said in the very beginning, for us the geopolitics is a question of existence, not just a question of the interest and the games of the on the big chessboard. No, we are fighting for existence here. Thank you.